Welcome to Ed Fluential Sports, where passion meets precision. I'm your host, Ed, diving deep into the plays, players, and stories shaping the game. And today I'm here to talk about the Myles Garrett trade. Just took place a few days ago. Uh, Biggest trade of the offseason so far. Biggest move in general of the offseason, of the NFL offseason. Myles Garrett being traded from the Browns to the Rams. And I've said this plenty of times about Myles Garrett. He had plenty of chances to leave, and he chose to stay with the Browns. He just had a chance recently, but decided to stay with him and sign the extension. They offered him so much money that he couldn't deny it, even though he's made a lot. But the reigning defensive player of the year just set the record for most sacks in a single season. He's being traded from the Browns. He gets out of purgatory. He goes to a contending team that was just in the NFC Championship, who has the MVP, Matthew Stafford, on their offense, and a team that's still going to be in contention, the Los Angeles Rams, who are still contending for a Super Bowl. And this trade put them at the top of the NFC, even over the Seahawks, who lost Kenneth Walker. And so obviously that's going to be the Seahawks are going to be a little worse, but they'll still be a pretty good team. But the Seahawks Rams seems like they're still going to be fighting for the division. Potentially the Niners if they can stay healthy, because even when injured, they still had a chance to win the division by one game. So this is a great move for the Rams. You upgrade your defense. You're already a contending team. And then Aaron Donald is talking about potentially coming out of retirement. Now that I don't see, even if he does, he'll be on limited snaps because he has missed about 4 years of action, so he'll be rusty anyway. So if he does come back, he'll play limited snaps, and he probably won't look the same. But that'd be cool to see him try to get another one. But yeah, for the Rams, this is a really good move. The Rams don't care about picks; they never have. They never have. That's why they traded Goff to get Stafford, and I think there was some picks involved in that, and they won in 2021. So now they're looking to win a second Super Bowl under Matthew Stafford, which is very possible. And probably you're a muff punt away from doing that last year, because whoever won the NFC Championship likely would have destroyed the Patriots and or the Broncos, because the Broncos didn't have Bo Nix. And so the Broncos obviously had a tough path because Jarrett Stidham had to start in the AFC Championship. So the Broncos were kind of cooked regardless. But the Patriots, they still had to play them. Came just still had to play their opponent, got to the Super Bowl, but they didn't look good at all. So the Rams, they're looking to get a second ring under in the Matthew Stafford era, which is very likely. And you still got Puka's doing his thing. Pretty sure Devontae is still there. And so this is going to be a good team once again. They're going to be at the top of the NFC, and that won't be a surprise to anybody. They were only the 5 seed because of how division standings work. So yeah, this is a great trade for the Rams. They're in a win now position. Obviously, I think the draft pick was kind of stupid because they could have got Ty Simpson later in the draft and potentially the second or third round. Because I guess Stafford, he probably has 2 or 3 years left, so you want to develop a guy under Stafford. So that way, once Stafford goes, you already have a guy that's ready to fill in that quarterback. And maybe you won't have that same 12, 13 wins, but you'll be a 9, 10 win team and still be over 500, potentially getting into the playoffs, and you won't have a major rebuild. So I get taking Ty Simpson in general, but I don't get taking him that early. But this was a really great move for the Rams, getting Myles Garrett, and the trade package they gave up to the Browns. Gave up Jared Verse, who was a young rising star entering his third season, a good defensive end in its own right, a 2027 first round pick, a 2028 second round pick, and a 2029 third round, confidential third round pick. So the pick could upgrade, but only if the Rams trade Myles Garrett back to the AFC North to either the Steelers, Ravens, or Bengals, so not back to the Browns, because that wouldn't even make sense. But in 2029, if he was traded back to the AFC and have to end up in any North team, which is a team that he wasn't on, then it would become a first rounder. But that's unlikely to happen. So they get Jared first. You get 3 picks: first round, second round, and third round. Most likely, most definitely going to be a third round pick, because I don't see him going to either of those teams. Even though we're in 2026 or 3 years away, I just don't see that as a possibility. But I think this is a good trade for the Browns. You're not a winning organization. Myles Garrett wasn't winning there. He got his records. He got his money. He got his all pros. So he was winning, but he wasn't in. They've had 2 playoff appearances since Myles has been there, if I'm not mistaken. So, and he's been there a few years, so they haven't got to the playoffs often, especially not these last 2 seasons. So getting off of Myles Garrett, you get younger with Jared Verse, who I think who's a great young talent, and then you get 3 picks to continue building your future. like the Browns do have a really good future, but you just can't trust the Browns as an organization. So that's why. And it's tough with certain players. It's tough, but they do have a really good future. Defensively, they were still solid last year. Obviously, Myles Garrett was the key behind that. But offensively, Shador, he started late in the season. Hero Fannin had a solid year, and they got some other rookies who had solid seasons last year. So I think this team will be a lot better. They might win a couple of more games, sort of the same amount. But I think it's all about development for these guys because the Browns do they're getting younger. I do think they got a solid core for the future. Like it's not this year, next year. I think in a couple of years, 2 3 years, they can be a decent team and get back to being at the top of the division, get back to being in the playoffs. So this was a good move. You had to get off of Myles Garrett because when you're a bad team and you have such a big star like that, you got to get off of them and get something back. Now, as far as pick goes, I do think only getting back one first rounder is bad because it's Myles Garrett. Like that other potential first rounder, that's a very unlikely scenario, and you wouldn't even want that to happen if you're the Browns. Why would you want him to be traded to one of those teams? So I thought this for it's a win now move for the Rams. Obviously, Jared Verse could have been their defensive star of the future, but Mal Matthew Stafford's going to retire in a few years, so you got to take advantage of that. Puka, he's still young, but as a receiver, he's going to want his number. He's going to want the wins, but he's also going to want his numbers too. So he's still going. He gonna want everything: the wins, the numbers, the awards, all of that. So Puka has even more chance of doing that because this defense is going to allow the offense to get the ball back even faster. So for the Rams, I think this is a great move because it's a win now move. You still got 2 to 3 years under Stafford, so you still got 2 or 3 more years of competing and contending for a Super Bowl, and you'll probably get one. Yeah, at least one. It's a reason why they're favorites after making this trade. And then for the Browns, this is a good trade for the future. Like I said, you get Jared Verse, you get 3 picks. The only problem with the picks is that out of two of those, three you would have won. Out of three of those, two should have been first rounders. You only got one. So I do think the Rams win this trade, but for the future, it's definitely gonna pay off for the Browns. But the Rams, they're looking to compete for Super Bowls and win championships because they already know what their future kind of looks like by drafting Ty Simpson, so they know what they want to go with in the future. And then with any other picks that they have in the second or third round, they can use to get a young defensive guy if Myles Garrett does end up retiring or if he leaves or something goes wrong. So I like this trade for both sides, but I like it for the Rams for now because they're a contending team. I like it for the Browns in their future because they can help them establish what they want to do and what they want to be. So, but if I had to give a grade, I don't think the Browns are losers, but I do think not getting another first round pick that does hurt. So for the Browns, I think I would go C plus. It's a solid trade. It could have been a little more because you got Jared Verse back, so you had to get a young guy. But those picks are very important because even if it's not at the end, because you don't know what the Rams are going to look like in 2 years. So at that point, like I don't like that stipulation for them. But for the or I'll go B minus. I think C plus might be a little low. I'll go B minus for them. But then for the Rams, I definitely think this is an A plus trade. You're focused on the now. You're focused on winning. So those picks don't mean anything to you, and they haven't. You're clearly seeing that it didn't matter when you traded for Stafford, and it paid off when you getting the Super Bowl. So why change that? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's what you needed. You needed a guy. Jared Verse is great, but Myles Garrett, he's one of the best defensive end. He's the best defensive end in the league. DPOY, most sacks in a single season. Any if anybody had the opportunity to make this trade for just this package, they're doing it. So this is great for the Rams. It establishes them even more as now the top team in the NFC. Yeah, the Seahawks are reigning champions. You do got to give them the respect. They're still the top of the NFC on a technicality basis. But going into the season, it seems like this is going to be the best team in the NFC. It'll be very surprising if they don't win the division. But if the Seahawks do it again, it's like they are Super Bowl champions. They lost their Super Bowl MVP, but Charbonnet, he'll be back. He'll be back healthy. I know he missed some time. So, like I said, I think it's both sides come out of here looking good. For the Rams, they look great for this season and the next few seasons. For the Browns, their future looks really bright, but only getting one first round pick for Myles Garrett is egregious. But with that being said, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts, and share for others to see.